Hello everyone. Finally I am here. I procrastinated about this for weeks, months even. I have had this in the works and I'm finally sitting here in front of this mic and this computer and this camera talking to you. My name is Ricky and welcome to my Booktube channel. Today I'm just going to go over some general things about myself. Got a few talking points right here. First things first. So my name's Ricky. I'm from Louisiana, New Orleans, Louisiana, more specifically. 24 years old. Basically, my entire life, I was a film snob. I was never really much into reading. I am a huge film snob. I've seen every movie and TV show there is to watch on the planet. As you can see, with all these posters and all this shit surrounding me, all these fucking posters, I love all of it. I'm a huge nerd. That's just how I am. I just got back with my little brother from the Fan Expo in New Orleans, which was awesome. I've always loved movies, never really been much of a reader. I always found reading to be kind of boring. And last year in 2024, that kind of changed for me in a big way. By the way, this is my cat, Fluffy Girl. Fluffy, say hi. Say hi to the people. She's the most beautiful cat in the world. Oh, sorry, man. Like I said, I'm very into movies. I'm gonna go through all the posters and everything. I'm gonna do a little bookshelf tour, either in this video or in another video, depending on how long this goes. I'm really into movies. I play golf. I am a huge Saints fan. Who dat? Yeah, a guy who reads and watches movies all the time also watches football. I know, it's weird. Guess I'm just a weird guy. The reason that I decided to start this Booktube channel here is because I have a lot of opinions. Ever since I became a reader last year, I've become very passionate about the books that I read, whether about how much I love them or how much I hate them, or how mediocre they are. In just a minute here, I'm gonna go through a lot of the books that started my reading journey that I'm gonna recommend to you. Look, I became a reader. I realized there was this whole world of brilliant stories and engaging experiences in books that I'd never had before. And so the one, negative that I realized is that not a lot of people in my life read books. It's a sad fact. I desperately try to recommend books to people all the time. It never works. They're always like, yeah, it's like, how when you recommend something to someone that they don't give a shit, they're not gonna fucking watch or read that shit. You're like, oh, you gotta read this book. And they're like, oh, okay, what's it called? Oh, yeah. You know damn well they're not gonna read that book. And so, I really just don't have anybody to talk about this with. And so I figured I would do this as, an outlet to get out all of my opinions. You're going to want to hear my opinions because one thing you should know about me is that I'm always right. I know, crazy, right? I'm literally never wrong and I know everything. So just a couple other fun facts about me. Fluffy, can I have my notebook? Thank you. I'm hoping to find some other people in the Booktube space that I can talk about books with and I can nerd out about, Brandon Sanderson with for hours on end. Hopefully people will watch this and leave their thoughts in the comments. That would be a pretty cool feeling as someone who's been leaving comments on YouTube videos for, the better part of my life. It would be really interesting to see what it's like to be on the other end of that. So I guess we'll see. I'm kind of hoping to build a community here, hopefully a following. Obviously, I want to try to get people watching my videos, but what I love about Booktube is that Booktube is this very tight-knit community. It's this very niche group on YouTube that basically everybody knows everybody. The Booktubers that have 550,000 subscribers, like a Daniel Green, are doing interviews and stuff with, the Booktubers that have like 2,000 subscribers, which I think, for me is just such a wholesome, heartwarming thing to see. Everybody knows everybody. It's just such a cool community. Obviously, you're going to have your toxic fans of certain books. You're going to have your trolls on the internet. But for the most part, everyone I've ever come across in the Booktube space is pretty cool. Pretty awesome people because they're the type of people that read books. I'm hoping to build something like that here. Let's talk a little bit about my reading journey. So I'm 24 years old, and for 23 of those years, I was not a reader. I hated reading. I thought reading was boring. A big part of it, like you'll hear from a lot of people, is because when I was in school, I was forced to read. And when they forced me to read books that I didn't want to read, it kind of soured reading for me. It became this chore, this task that I did for 12 years that I was forced to do either in the summer or during the school year in English class, being forced to read all these things like Beowulf and, the Canterbury Tales and Pride and Prejudice, things that I just did not care about and did not interest me whatsoever. It's sad that is one thing that our education system does. is it turns a lot of people away from reading who would otherwise really enjoy it. I always thought reading was boring. I can never get through the first chapter of a book. I've always been the type of person who wants to be a reader. I've always wished that I was the type of person who could sit for 8 hours and read a book, because I always saw those people as like, smarter, cooler. Every once in a while in my life, I will get this urge to go to Barnes and Noble, or go somewhere and buy a book or buy a bunch of books. Today's the day I'm going to become a reader, and then I never read any of them, and they just go to waste. Something changed last year. In 2024, around April, I decided to buy a book. This was the first book I read on my new reading journey. I'd read a couple books before in my life. I had read things like The Wizard of Oz, or things like Lord of the Flies, obviously for school. I read The Hunger Games, things like that. But this last year, the start of 2024, is what I consider to be the start of really my reading journey. So I'm going to count this as the first book I've ever read. This is a book called All Good People Here by Ashley Flowers. The reason I picked this up is because I'm a huge crime junkie and I love Ashley Flowers. When I found out that she wrote a book, I was like, bro, what? I gotta pick this up now. She's amazing at telling stories. I mean, obviously real life stories, but I was like, I really want to read this book. I love Ashley Flowers. I love Brit. I love the crime junkies. Why not read this book? And yeah, I was very shocked to find myself turning the pages. It didn't feel like a chore. This was the first time in my life where I was reading a book, and it actually felt as though like I wanted to go to the next page. I wanted to see what happens. It was the first time I ever really got lost in just the story of a book. That's never happened before. Every time I've ever tried to read a book, I'm always so aware of the fact that I'm reading and the fact that I'm doing this task that I never really get to enjoy it, but this was the first time I did. This is a really good book. It's called All Good People Here. I don't know if I would say really good. I would say it's pretty good. I thought it was amazing when I first read it, but I've read a lot of other things since then that have really knocked this down a peg. Now, I'm gonna list a bunch of other books that also have been a part of my reading journey, some that started it back around this time. But I'm not gonna go super in depth with these books. I just want to kind of talk about each one briefly and just kind of guide you, where I've gone in my reading journey, all the books that I've read, so you can kind of, where I'm at as far as like me and my reading and what books I've read in my reading journey. So just real quick synopsis. All Good People Here. This is so basically there's two storylines. There's one that takes place the present day. And the other storyline takes place in the early 90s. And basically, it's about the main storyline in the present day is about this girl named Margot, who is a journalist who comes back to her hometown because so back in the 90s there was this big murder case. This little girl named January, who was Margot's friend when they were little kids, was murdered, and it was like a big mystery in the town, and it was this big thing. And then in the present day, another girl gets kidnapped and murdered, or I don't know if she gets murdered. I don't remember. It's been a long time since I read it. It's very similar. And so Margot is already starting to draw conclusions. So now Margot is investigating the murder of this new young girl who got kidnapped, and she's also digging back into old wounds. And we get the point of view in the other storyline in the past. We get the point of view of the mom of the girl who died. Her name's Chrissy is the mom. She's January's little girl. January Jacobs, Chrissy Jacobs, in the 90s. And it shows her perspective as to, all the events that unfolded. And so as you're going through the storylines, everything starts to intersect as you start to get more and more pieces to the puzzle. And there's some big twists. Some of them work, some of them don't. One of them really doesn't. So I'm going to do a separate review for this. I'm going to get real in depth with this book. That's first book I read in my reading journey. So there's that. Next up. Now, this is a book that I would still call a true masterpiece, even after all the books I've read since then. This is Stephen King's Pet Sematary. This book hit me on a level that I never thought a book could affect me emotionally this way. I mean, the themes, the way it dives into the hard themes about death and grief and loss. Oh my God, Stephen King Stephen King's the best fucking writer in the world. He really is. He really is. I mean, there's nothing else to it. I know that's not. I know it's not an unpopular opinion. I know that's what a lot of people think. But there's a reason he's the most popular author in the world. There's a reason that his name is so recognizable. He is a master of his craft. I mean, the writing in here is just, oh my God. Stephen King, what I love about him is that he's one of those authors that can literally just like spend 200 pages describing the mundane daily lives of these random people, and he will make you care so fucking much about what's going on. And you're like, this book's called Pet Sematary, and I'm more invested in like this husband and wife are having this fight about death, and she's talking about like how her younger sister, died when she was younger, and it was just this brilliant scene. I'm not going to spoil anything for those of you who, the few of you out there who don't know what happens in this book. I'm not going to ruin that for you. I knew what happens going in. I had it spoiled for me a long time ago. So yeah, but even still, it still affected me deeply on a deep level. The characters are amazing. Lewis is an amazing protagonist. Judd Crandall as his old, like, new father figure he is hilarious and so sweet. He's the heart of this book. And I love all the characters so much. Rachel Creed is the wife. She's wonderful. The little girl, Ellie, Gage, even the baby is like a very well-written baby. It's just an incredible book, and I would recommend it to everybody. It's not my personal favorite book that I've read so far, but it's definitely, I would say objectively, it is the best one out of all the ones that I've read. It is the best book, for sure. Best written book. Amazing. Check it out. All right. So, as you can see, I delved straight into horror when I started my reading journey because I love horror. Horror and fantasy. Those are my two biggest, and sci-fi as well. But horror and like sci fantasy are my two biggest genres. But anyways, this is The Troop by Nick Cutter. This is a body horror. For those of you who don't know what body horror is, it's basically what it sounds like. It's the horror of the body. It's horror that comes from the disgusting, freaky things that you can do with the human anatomy. And I'm not gonna spoil anything. All I'll say is this book is about. I didn't tell you what Pet Sematary. Everyone knows what Pet Sematary is about. Forget that. Fuck that. The Troop is about this group of Boy Scouts led by their Boy Scout. What do you call the adults that chaperone them? Whatever. Scout master. Whatever. It's this group of 5 kids and this adult, and they go out into this island in the Canadian wilderness on a weekend trip. To get merit badges and live in the nature. And then out of nowhere, they are surprised by this man that comes off a boat, and let's just say he is very hungry. He is very hungry. This book is amazing. That's all I'm really going to say about it. I'm not going to get into any more of the plot. You should go into this as blind as possible. I would say that about every book. Every book you should go in blind. But especially this. This is just... Oh, it's so great. You get so attached to the kids in the book. It's very Lord of the Flies-esque, but it's also like, very The Fly-esque, like with Jeff Goldblum as well. Very well-written. Prose is amazing. It's sort of told, a lot of it is told in that epistolary format, where a lot of it is newspaper articles and recorded, official conversations in a courtroom or something like that, or in a science lab, like journals and whatnot. So it's told sort of in that epistolary format. Most of it isn't, but a good chunk of it is. And it works really well. The characters are all three-dimensional. They're all very well fleshed out. There's people you root for. There's people you love. And then there's people you love to hate. And there's people you end up rooting against. Both equally passionately. It's just a really cool concept. It's a fantastic book, and I would absolutely recommend it. This is the second book I read. On my reading journey. This is Tender as the Flesh. Now, this book is amazing. I will say that. It is amazing. However, in order for me to recommend this to you, I do have to let you know, and I guess same with The Troop as well, warning, there's a lot of gore in the troop. There's a couple examples of really dark animal abuse. So if that's really hard for you to read, I would just keep that in mind before you read the troop. But this has a lot of pretty graphic scenes. So for those of you who don't know, this book is about a near future sort of dystopian society where a virus has infected all the animals. And so now animal meat is no longer edible to humans because it will kill them. So it gets to the point where we don't have any more meat. And basically what happens is the government legalizes cannibalism. And they start breeding and growing and slaughtering humans as livestock, basically. And it's a very brilliant story. You get really attached to the main character. I won't tell you much more than that. Like I said, I'm just trying to be super brief about all these books. It's hard for me to be brief about it. I'm so passionate about all these. But yeah, I'm just trying to be super brief. The writing's great. Even with the translation, this is a Argentinian book. And it was translated into 12 different languages, one including English, obviously. But even with the translation, it reads very well. There are some pretty gruesome scenes. The ending of this book, which I will obviously not spoil, fucked me up. The ending of this book slaps you in the face, and it will fuck you up in the best way possible. And that's all I'll say. All right. Sweet. You know what? Fuck it. Let's talk about Mistborn, baby. Yes! This is where the shit gets real good. All right. So, I'm not gonna go super in depth into all these books. This video would be fucking 2 hours long. That would be probably not a great idea for my first ever Booktube video. But I just really, really quickly want to talk about the Mistborn trilogy. Absolutely fucking phenomenal. 5-star books, all 3 of them. Fucking amazing. Amazing. I just finished reading The Hero of Ages. I was on that floor right there, bawling my eyes out for a good hour. I was crying so hard. It was so emotional and just... Okay, so, plot. Just for any of those of you who have been living under a rock in the fantasy world and don't know what Mistborn is. Basically, there's this fantasy world, this land called the Final Empire. And it's ruled by this tyrant, this piece of shit called the Lord Ruler. And you basically have 2 classes of people. You have the rich nobles and you have the poor slaves, which they call the Ska. And basically, this Mistborn, the first book, is basically these thieves, this group of thieves that you're following, these underground Ska thieves, basically get together, try to overthrow and rob the Lord Ruler. It's basically like a heist book. It's a heist book. It's a heist story set within a fantasy world, which is awesome, which, by the way, has become my new favorite subgenre of fantasy, is like heist fantasy, which I love. But what really, really, really sets this series apart from other fantasy series is the magic system. The magic system, it's called allomancy. And basically the way it works is certain rare people are born with the ability to burn one metal. They can swallow metal, burn it inside of them, and it gives them some sort of specific power. Like some different metals affect your emotions, or other people's emotions. Different metals enable you to pull or push against other metals. It's fascinating. And so those people are called allomancers. Those are mistings. And then there's this even more rare group of people called Mistborn, who have all the metals. There's basically 8 basic metals. Mistings, you're either born a misting or a mistborn. If you're born a misting, you only have one of the powers. You can only burn one of the metals. If you're a mistborn, you can burn all 8. We follow our 2 main characters are both mistborn, and basically one of them is training the other on how to become, how to use their skills properly. It's just an incredible book. There's the 2 main characters in this, Vin and especially Kelsier. Kelsier is probably the best character I've ever read about in a book. He is He is so charming and charismatic. He's hilarious. He has this big heart, but he's also not the greatest guy. You know, he does some pretty bad things in this book. So he's not perfect. He's flawed, which I love. But he is what makes this book truly amazing. I'm not going to tell you what these are about because I don't want to spoil anything for it. So that is my very, very brief review of Mistborn. Please check it out. If you have not read Mistborn, what are you doing? Go read it, please. I also read Salem's Lot. I'm going to do a review for this on its own. I am of the very small minority of people. I did not like this book. And look, I know. This is one of the Stephen King classics. This is like when every tier list I've ever seen of Stephen King books, of people who have read all 80 of his books, they always put this in S tier, always. And I guess I went in with that expectation, and I was just very let down. I didn't think it was very good. It's basically about a new guy in this town comes to write a new book. He's a writer. That was like the first of Stephen King using that trope. Basically, vampires. It's about vampires. It's Mike from Mike's Book Reviews describes it as this. He describes it as like when vampires used to be scary instead of sexy. You know, like Twilight and whatnot. I'll just say they weren't very scary to me. I'm going to get into that. When I review the book. Oh, yes. I don't have it because I listened to the audiobook. Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir is absolutely fucking phenomenal. I listened to the audiobook this year because I heard the audiobook was the best way to listen to it, and it was. Oh my God. That book is absolutely amazing. I watched the movie The Martian when it came out. I never read the book, so I was never a reader. I loved The Martian. I thought it was great, and I assume the book is just as good. Everyone raves about it. But I never read The Martian. I never read Artemis either by Andy Weir, which is probably his least revered book. Project Hail Mary, I'm literally going to tell you almost nothing about it. Do not, whatever you do, please go read this book or listen to it. Whatever you want to do, go read this book. Do not listen to any synopsis. Don't listen to any reviews. Don't look up anything what it's about. If you buy the book, don't look on the back. Don't look on the back. Don't look at the synopsis on the back. Just don't. Okay? Go into it completely blind. This is all I'll say. This is all I'll say to pitch it to you. It's basically this guy wakes up from a coma in the middle of deep space, and he has no idea who he is or why he's there. That is all you need to know. And that's it. And basically, the way the story is structured is half of the book takes place in the present with him on the ship, and then the other half of the book is him slowly getting the pieces of his memory back, and we see it through flashbacks as everything starts to connect, and he starts to slowly unravel with the new pieces of his memory, why he's here, what he's doing here. It made me cry on multiple occasions. It was absolutely phenomenal. The reason that I say please don't go look up a synopsis or anything is because this book takes a turn somewhere that you are not expecting. It takes a turn, and I was not expecting it. I did not realize it was coming, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. And it's just don't listen to any reviews or read any synopses because I don't know who's going to be willing to spoil that part of it. You don't want that part spoiled. I mean, the book is still good even if it is, but you really don't want that part spoiled. So don't look up anything. Just go read Project Hail Mary. It is absolutely phenomenal. I did start reading Red Rising. So I just started reading this series. I got the Juniper set, both of the trilogies. Beautiful set, by the way. I'm going to show you when I do my tour of the bookshelves. But yeah, I just finished reading the first book. Now I'm on second book, Golden Sun. Red Rising was phenomenal. It's basically like Hunger Games meets Ender's Game meets Game of Thrones. In the first book, at least. And it's fantastic. It's about this character named Darrow, who is a hell diver. He works in the mines of this future society. Basically, he lives on Mars, and his people, the Reds, they are mining Mars for resources in order to make it habitable for people on Earth, right? So they are the pioneers. They are the people that are, shedding sweat and blood and tears so that, the people of Earth can come to Mars and terraform Mars. That's all I'll say. Red Rising is another one that the book takes a turn that you're not expecting, and if you know it going in, the book is still amazing, but it does take away that piece of it. So yeah, don't read anything about Red Rising going in. Don't read the back of the book. Just go in blind. That's all you need to know. I did just read the first Dresden Files book. It was all right. It was okay. I just started reading Dungeon Crawler Carl. It's really hilarious. Love that. I did also start listening to the Blade itself, the First Law audiobook, but I decided to buy the books also and do the immersive reading thing where you listen and read at the same time, which I heard it was awesome, and it is. No, that's all the books. Those are all the books that I have read on my 2024 and now into 2025 new reading journey. I'm finally sitting here doing this. I'm sitting here talking to you. I never thought I'd be able to do something like this. I'm really excited. I know a lot of my friends are going to see this, so hello to all my friends that are watching this. Shout out Michaela. I know you're very excited about this, and Jacob as well. Shout out to you guys. Love y'all. I think that's about it. I'm going to do my next video is probably going to be just like a quick tour of all my stuff, my bookshelves and whatnot. I'm trying to find a way to get, because I'm recording this with my phone. I'm trying to find a way to get my phone in the right position to like capture all this. So that's about it. Thank you for watching. If you watched all the way to the end, I appreciate that immensely. I'm gonna sign up for Patreon, and I'm gonna start doing a Patreon. So maybe hopefully people can join me on that. That would be cool. I'm not gonna be one of those people that tells you to like and subscribe at the end of the video. I absolutely fucking hate that shit. I hate when people do that. So yeah, that's not gonna be me. If you don't want to subscribe or like, don't. Do whatever you want. I always hate that. It's like, you really think you telling me to do that is gonna change whether or not I'm gonna subscribe to you? Anyways, whatever. Thanks for watching. See ya.